Well, are we about to head into a doom economy? The idea is to get the American public to become sympathetic to engage and sustain their war, purposefully driving up the cost of oil. The main, and according to our next guest, the playbook looks like this. First, the media inundates you with sensationalized imagery and messaging that confirms your biases. Then they plant a false flag. And then they all try to rally around this propaganda to push us into it. Woodrow Wilson, FDR, LBJ, JFK, all of it. We can see all of this. I mean, we've seen this with false flags for years. 9/11, anybody? Shane Cashman is the host of Inverted World Live, and he's been talking about this doom economy for a while now, and we wanted to bring him on to maybe elucidate his point here. Shane, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
So can you explain what you mean by the doom economy? How is this good for any president of the United States? We saw what happened with Joe Biden when inflation was soaring, gas prices were up, egg prices were up. The kitchen table issues drove him from power. No? Would conservatives be pushed out of power with a doom economy?
I think it's out of the president's hands. I think the doom economy is kind of puppeteered from behind the scenes by whatever you want to call it, the deep state. You know, everyone's got a different phrase for it, different foreign actors. It's, in my opinion, an ancient strain of evil that operates behind the scenes that wants to rile the public up to a state of total chaos and confusion, to where we, as in like the collective we, feel like we need to be saved by the big parent government. We do this to ourselves. You know, it doesn't just have to be war as we typically think of it. It happened just as recently as COVID and lockdowns. Look how they did widespread mass fear porn during COVID to make people even afraid to go outside. So if they can do that to your neighbor, to your family, to people that loved you the day before, you know, CNN and Fox and NBC told you, you know, you got to stay 6 feet apart from each other. What else can they do? So, you know, you mentioned the idea of false flags and the idea of the media, you know, the stuff I've been talking about, destabilizing a nation or infecting the public consciousness. We got COVID, like I just mentioned, but then we can go as far back as something like 1953, when we used this playbook to overthrow Iran. That back then with Operation Ajax, when the main CIA guy on the ground in Iran was Kermit Roosevelt Jr., Teddy Roosevelt's grandson. And they knew even back then, the best way to destabilize a nation is to infect the media, to poison the collective consciousness of a nation, to have them totally turn on their leaders, so then they can start to destabilize it, while then also funding, you know, the quote unquote bad actors of the day. We did it in Guatemala a year after. But this is the playbook. You know, in terms of war, a good example would be, you know, what happened with the Great Depression, what happened with FDR. You could go through Woodrow Wilson to FDR, World War I, World War II, and how those economies were boosted by war. But in FDR specifically, the corporations were attempting to overthrow the country. You can look this up. That's the business plot. DuPont, JP Morgan, a lot of other bankers and businessmen were looking to overthrow the country for their own interests. And they were going to install a man named Smedley Butler, who was a decorated general, a war hero with 2 Purple Hearts. He said no. And then he went on to write a lot of books, one book in particular called War is a Racket, which is kind of summing up this idea as well that I'm talking about, where we destabilize the nation, we get us into war, and war is a racket means it's great for everyone except the American people. It's great for the corporations who are going to make a lot of money. Of course, DuPont, made a ton of money off World War II because they made all of the gunpowder.
What you're describing is the French economist Bastiat in 1850, the broken window fallacy. That because the window's broken, now we've got a glazier to remake the window. Now we've got someone a contractor to fix the window. Now we've got all of this new economic activity. But obviously that's been proved ignorant because it's what's not seen, the opportunity cost. What could have been done with that money to actually make your country a better place. And it sort of masks loss as progress. And it forces people to spend resources getting back to zero. So can you play out how that's sold to us as progress?
I mean, to the American people, it seems like being the world police. They want us to think that we're the good guys. We're going to police the world. We're going to prevent this tragedy. And I understand human nature is evil. People do horrible things, and we've seen attacks here. But, they're selling it in the same way, this war with Iran, they're selling it in the same way that they sold the vaccines. This is safe and effective. You're going to be safer off if we do this now. I just don't buy it. And you talked about the broken window. Unfortunately, we know through history, we've broken the window on purpose to get into the wars. Again, we talked about false flags. They were willing to do mass casualty events on the American people, the Joint Chiefs of Staff during the Cuban Missile Crisis, during that time with JFK, to then blame it on Cuba, right? So that's one of those instances of, hey, let's break this window and then we're going to go fix that problem. They're going to make a lot of money on it because war is great for the economy. But the people will be suffering. We're going to send men and women out to war. We're going to waste all this money on it, and the new corporations of the day are going to make the most money. Silicon Valley is going to do great. Anduril, Palantir, Clearview AI, you name it, all these people that have rebranded into MAGA all of a sudden, they're the ones who are going to do really, really well within war.
So how will this play out? How will this doom economy play out here in the United States? Do you see it actually coming into effect? I mean, Trump obviously is running on reducing inflation. He's slamming Jerome Powell today, saying I've called him every name in the playbook, trying to get him to cut interest rates, which would also be in many ways disastrous. But how would the doom economy play out here in the United States, do you see?
Well, I feel like we're already in it. I think this country's been totally mutilated since COVID. I mean, we can go back decades prior, but COVID shut down the entire world. Everyone was sent home. So we've kind of been ground down to the bone. I think we're in it, and we're experiencing the consequences of it now. And like you mentioned earlier before this segment, that the MAGA is fracturing. You're watching that happen right now. Not that I care, because people are standing on principle, but you're seeing the entire base totally fracture. So it's going to come down to the president saying, which he has always said, I don't want Iran to have nuclear capabilities. And then he's going to say, he's going to do it whether or not we like it or not, because he's got intel. Now, I'm just, because maybe I'm too paranoid, I am skeptical of that intel, because he's surrounded by a lot of people who also did the weapons of mass destruction. So we know how that went, right? So, yeah, I think we're already there. And I think what's going to happen next is they're just going to inundate us. I'm seeing a lot of people get bloodthirsty. Ted Cruz is all about it. We're seeing, obviously, we're not surprised with Lindsey Graham or Nikki Haley, but that whole faction is coalescing around it must be war, whatever that looks like. But in my opinion, we're already at war. Like, we're already assisting everyone. We're doing all these different things with defense. So, in my opinion, we're there. It's just not boots on ground war yet.
Well, the media and the corporations are in lockstep on this. I think your point about the military-industrial complex makes a boatload of money off of this. The media is complicit. So Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, they make a lot of money off of this. They love war. And then the government intelligence agencies love it as well. They get to expand. They get to argue that they need to have bigger budgets, and they get to grow. And the whole thing, it's like a giant octopus that continues to grow. And then we become like little servant lapdogs, oh, it's so bad, but can you make us safer? Can you take away some of our civil liberties like you did in the Patriot Act? Can you make me take off my shoes at the airport? Can you have biometric scanning so you know everything that I'm doing because you'll make me safer?
And part of the question that I have then on that front is that then we know our entire economy is based on a perversion because we can wage wars because the Federal Reserve acts as the venture capitalist of every war we want to wage. We never have to stop it because of this perversion of the US dollar. So we as Americans will never know what we're really made out of. We will never get a chance to really build an economy on our own blood, sweat, and tears and be proud of it. And that also feels awful.
Well, we could look at the 1800s, right, Shane? The 1880s. Yeah. We could say, hey, we didn't have a Fed. We had an industrial revolution that wasn't corrupted and perverted by the Federal Reserve and a bastardizing of the U.S. dollar. And we built a Gilded Age in the United States. I think we could look to history.
Are we still built of that? Like, I have no, like what could we really have done?
I think those, like the monopolies that did take over for that industrial revolution are now the Silicon Valley types who literally call themselves monopolies. Someone like Peter Thiel says he's into monopolies. So that's like the new version of that. But I think that idea of actual real progress is dead because the idea of the progress from Silicon Valley, in my opinion, is antithetical to humanity because they're completely pro-war, although they're also, deranged leftists who rebranded, but they're building this entire false world, false reality through Meta, through the surveillance state, through Meta trying to read your brain waves and project them as images. So like all of that is bad, in my opinion, and they actually want to monopolize your thoughts. So what we once had is this dawn of progress and this idea of the industrial revolution, which I think has a lot of consequences. We're in a nightmare stage of that now, and those people are not only surrounding this administration, which I support Trump, not so much on this war stuff. We'll see how it goes. But on his second day in office, what he did was give those people, Silicon Valley, Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, from OpenAI and Oracle, they got $500 billion to help build up the surveillance state. So that to me is very concerning and is a complete fracture from humanity.
Yeah. I think you're right. Shane Cashman, host of Inverted World Live. We appreciate it. Everyone should check out the show. Appreciate it. And Shane, someone in the chat, Joe Bowers says, yeah, the 1880s were the best times. I would have loved to have drank a whiskey with Doc Holliday. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Get Doc in the Holliday. DeLorean. Get in your DeLorean and go back to the Future 3. Shane, great to see you. I appreciate this. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for your perspective on this.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.